I would like to remind the standees that the fire regulations do not allow for standees, so other than the officer on duty, could you please have a seat? I'd also like to remind anyone who has a communications device to put it on silent or off. I now call the meeting of the Cranston City Council, June 25th, 2012, to order. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Present.
Present.
Present. Clerk, please note that Councilwoman Luciano is out for medical reasons. At this time, I'd like all of our guests to stand, and I'd like Colonel Marco Palumbo to come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Present. Arms.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hold up. Arms.
I'll entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Public acknowledgements and commendations. At this time, Council Vice President Navarro will make a note of honoring Parkview Middle School members for the National Energy Education Development Program and their honors.
Thank you, Council President, and good evening, everyone. We have citations set up for the Parkview Middle School kids that are involved in what's called the NEED program this year. Unfortunately, they're on their way back from Washington. They were supposed to be here today, but their plane got delayed and they're stranded. They were set to be here today. So what I'm going to do is still announce their recognition, and we'll finalize their signatures from the rest of the council members so we can mail them out their citations. But I do want to recognize young kids in Parkview that are teaching other kids about energy conservation. And basically, these are the names of students who were involved in the NEED program this year. NEED stands for National Energy Education Development Project, where kids teach other kids about energy. These students have presented workshops to students and teachers from across Rhode Island and Rhode Island's State Energy Office, and have conducted an energy fair for Cranston community. They're in charge of setting up the conferences, planning, conducting, coordinating. So they do a nice job for what these kids do. And the big reason for their citation is that they actually were nationally recognized for their efforts amongst throughout the country. So we have, and that's why they're in Washington, to get their recognition as well. And so I'm here tonight to present it to them. And if I can just, I'll dispense with the names, but if I can have the rest of the council members sign off on these, and we'll send them out to them. And if we can get them together for next month, but I mean, it's summertime, they're out of school. I don't know our chance of getting them all together, but we will try one more time, and we'll hopefully can give them their citations. Thank you.
Just as an added note that the students there do a wonderful job. And Mrs. Spaziano has been running that program since at least 2000, 2001, and they've been nationally recognized more than several times. And we're lucky to have someone like her in a program like this to teach kids about energy and conserving and the environment. Under public hearings, there's a presentation by the Cranston Police Department. Hold on a second. Okay, so at this point in time, we're going to take comments by the public limited to docketed matters. Following the public speaking, there will be a presentation by the Cranston Police Department. So that's not what it says here. Okay, we're going to have Colonel Palumbo, you're on first.
Good evening. First, I would like to thank the council for giving us the opportunity to do this presentation tonight, and I'd also like to thank everybody in the audience for coming this evening. Good evening. My name is Lieutenant Vincent McAteer, and I am here this evening to present to the council the results of our community survey conducted by Salve Regina University in conjunction with our Inspectional Services Division. I have to apologize ahead of time for the slides on the screen. This is a PowerPoint presentation. Some of the slides won't be readable, but I'll do the best I can to interpret what's there for you. The men and the women of the Cranston Police Department have spent the last 3 years climbing toward an incredibly difficult summit. This was a complex journey and one that required a tremendous amount of teamwork and cooperation. In becoming accredited, we attained a symbol of our hard work and an affirmation that your police department is putting forth a work product that is both admirable and worthy of being held as a leader in law enforcement. This evening's presentation is a snapshot of the highlights of our community's opinion of her police department, as well as a reflection of its concerns going forward and where improvements in our organization may be found. We hope you find this information as helpful and insightful as we have. One of the most common questions we receive about the accreditation process is who is the governing body that confers this accredited status? CALEA is the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. It was created in 1979 in response to a hue and cry from the industry for law enforcement to professionalize. During the 70s, there were a number of court decisions that went a long way towards standardizing the way police do business. The four organizations that conceived CALEA, the Police Executive Research Forum, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, and the National Sheriff's Association, started the process of awarding accreditation as both a way to recognize police departments for adhering to established best practices and to provide a template for agencies to build off of to ensure that they're operating toward their potential. Part of the accreditation process is a standard that addresses the concerns of the community through a citizen survey. The actual wording we're trying to get up on the screen for you. But essentially the standard itself addresses a community survey of citizen attitudes and opinions of our performance, our competence, our perception of officers' attitudes and behavior, community concerns over safety and security, and citizen recommendations for improvement. In fulfilling this standard, we truly wanted our community's input. We wanted everyone's opinion, not just the people that we could count on to tell us how we're doing. We wanted everyone to tell us, even those that may have had negative contact with us. That being said, we recognize that most citizens' contacts with the police are inherently negative. Generally, something bad happens if you come in contact with the police. So to start, we will first look at how the survey was conceived and conducted. In September of last year, Captain Sean Carmody, commander of the Inspectional Services Division, met with Mr. Dan Knight of the Salve Regina University to decide if the university could provide us with their service in conjunction with their senior level statistics class. Their job would be to design, implement, and publish the results of a community survey for the Cranston Police Department that would both fulfill the requirements of the accreditation process, but more importantly, to give us an honest appraisal of where we stood with the community. When both gentlemen agreed that each would benefit from the process, Colonel Palumbo met with the class to stress the importance of the survey to the department and to provide direction to the students. The survey itself was then designed by the students and personalized to reflect the needs of the Cranston Police Department. The survey itself was divided into 6 sections. The sections included questions regarding demographics, personal contact, the nature of that contact, professionalism, effectiveness of our programs, familiarity with those programs, and the quality of life issues. Additionally, space was provided for any additional comments that recipients wished to add. 5,000 voters aged 18 to 65 were randomly chosen and equally spread geographically. A standard Likert scale was used to measure the responses and were ranged from 1 to 5, with 1 representing unsatisfactory performance and concern for an issue, and 5 representing excellence for an issue. 985 surveys were returned, producing a 19% return rate. Only these questionnaires were utilized for the statistical analysis, although we did receive some after the fact, coming up to a total of 21%. Given the quality and the size of the survey instrument, and the information which the participant had the opportunity to contribute to the survey, the sample size was determined by Mr. Knight to be scientifically valid. The students also conducted face-to-face interviews with the community in the month of October. These interviews were publicized in local media and were set up to mirror the goals of the survey. The Salve representatives also had the opportunity to interview our high school students. These interviews allowed us to gauge how people under 18 felt about the performance of the Cranston Police Department and gave us insight on the concerns of the younger citizens and how we could best serve their needs. Salve was also contacted by citizens requesting to be interviewed by phone. These interviews were conducted by the students in the same manner as the face-to-face interviews. Shortly after each of them, the notes and responses were officially transcribed, initialed, and maintained for inclusion in the appendix. And now for the results. We first looked at the nature of the contact, or the reason why a citizen came in contact with us. As you may imagine, the very first question we asked was, what type of contact did you have? The most common response was that a resident had made a complaint of a crime or incident. And believe it or not, when we further looked into this figure, we found that most citizens came in contact with our offices when they requested police presence for something as simple as a burglar alarm. We also asked our residents if they felt if there were any barriers present to their contact with police. Only 1% of the respondents indicated that they found it difficult to communicate with an officer, while 7 in 10 found that no barriers were present. Interestingly, 30% did not answer this question. And while it's difficult to extrapolate why the respondents did not answer the question, I would point out that it's very promising that a strong majority felt that they had no problems. Additionally, we asked our residents if they felt that we responded to their needs in a timely manner. As you could see, our response rate was extremely favorable at slightly below 90%. The next section examined our citizens' personal contact with our officers. This section is extremely important to us. We want to know what our citizens think about it when it's all over. Do they have confidence in their police department? As you can see, the department received superb reviews regarding their personal contact with our officers. The ratings you see here address contact with the entire police department, patrol, detectives, as well as the civilian complement. Of the available responses, over 25% of the respondents rated our officers as excellence in each category. When we broke down the statistics by major components of the department, the patrol, detective, and supervisory staff, we found that our officers and our supervisor were conducting themselves all in an extremely positive light, all above 90%. The next section examined our citizens' concern in terms of crime in their city. Of immediate concern to us is what our citizens believe to be a serious issue. As you can see, topping the list of their concerns was burglary, followed by larceny and vandalism, basic property crimes. In response to this, we've created a task force within our detective division to deal directly with the problem of burglary and continue to expand our community crime watch involvement. I would like to point out also that at none of the top of these three responses relative to resident concerns are what are called UCR Part 1 crimes: murder, sexual assault, robbery. We also gave our citizens the opportunity to express what they thought was not an issue for them. We found these, for the most part, to be basic quality of life issues. I should point out that we were very happy to see that school violence is not a major issue for our citizens, and I would just ask you to hold on to that for one moment. Additionally, in the survey, we asked our residents if they were familiar with the services their police department could provide for them. So as you can see, it's apparent that our message is getting out. People know that we offer services outside of basic law enforcement, the services that engage the community. And getting back to that figure of bullying is not a problem in the school, 62% of our respondents said that no, it was not. We believe that the reason that this is so is because almost half our respondents, 42%, know that we have officers in our schools and they know about the hard work that they do on an everyday basis. So it's obvious that our message is getting out, but does it resonate with our citizens? And we attempted to answer this question by asking our residents the most important question a police department can ask: do you feel safe in the community? We're happy to report that our residents overwhelmingly feel safe living, working, and raising a family in the city of Cranston. We also asked our community to rate us on our response to quality of life issues on a positive or negative basis. As you could see, our response to school violence ranked toward the top again, which is an affirmation that we continue to have a strong presence in our schools. So what did we learn from this process? A major lesson that we learned during the process is to facilitate as much communication with the community as possible. One major initiative that we've worked very hard to achieve as a result of this survey is the integration of technology into the way we communicate with our residents. Since last fall, we've created a strong Facebook and Twitter presence, and we've recently unveiled a greatly expanded website that includes the crimereports.com interface that shows our residents where recent reports of crime are located in almost real time. One of the most important lessons of this survey was to find out that we have charted a solid course for our police department to address our community's concerns. More importantly, we found that it is imperative that we never stop asking the tough questions of ourselves, to constantly ask ourselves, where do we need to improve? And if necessary, correct our course so that we continue to head in the right direction for our community. You're probably asking yourselves, did we get it accredited? After the on-site inspection by representatives of CALEA back in December, the final leg of our accreditation journey was Colonel Palumbo's testimony to an International Board of CALEA Commissioners. This testimony centered on our experience during the entire process, problems encountered, as well as the board's questions about the future of the department. After presenting on behalf of the Cranston Police Department, Colonel Palumbo and members of the Inspectional Services Division were informed that the Commission had voted unanimously for Cranston to receive advanced national accreditation. Additionally, I think you see some of the gentlemen behind me, our Special Reaction Team recently received their second reaccreditation. They're only the second team in the state of Rhode Island to be recertified. This is a direct result of the same type of teamwork and effort that was put forth earlier this month when they, along with our hostage negotiators, successfully and safely were able to convince a veteran suffering from PTSD to receive medical assistance on Legion Way. At this time, I would like to recognize and call forward Mayor Ellen Fung for a presentation of a certificate of accreditation on behalf of the men and women of the Cranston Police Department. This achievement could not be done without the outstanding support of Mayor Fung and the City Council, past and present members, and we wholeheartedly appreciate the confidence that you have placed in us. I would now like to welcome Colonel Marco Palumbo to the podium for the presentation of the Accreditation Award and for his remarks. Colonel Palumbo.
Before we get into the presentation, I just wanted to make a few comments. First of all, I apologize for the PowerPoint. I didn't realize it would be so light up, but we do have a copy of the community survey for council members, members of the media, anybody that wishes to review it, members of the public certainly. The results of the survey, and first of all, I want to thank members of the council for giving us this opportunity to come to address you here in this forum. The results of the survey are particularly pleasing, and I'm very proud. The men and women sitting behind me are responsible for these results, and that's important for everyone to understand. It's not any one person that can achieve something like this. Certainly national accreditation or a community survey that says that between 91 and 96% of the population approve of what we do and how we're doing it. That's not one person. That's 153 people. There are two important points I'd like the council to be aware of when you consider the success of this survey. And the first one is, we commissioned this survey in September of 2011, and the agency was barely 1 year into a complete rehaul of how we police our city, where we had transitioned from an older style random patrol method to a method that reflects a community policing philosophy. So our members were learning a new way to police, and something that hadn't been done ever in Cranston. And the second challenge was that we had recently sustained a number of retirements that didn't have as full capacity as we would like to be. So we achieved these results while we were learning and while we weren't up to full speed. And that makes it all the more impressive. I also like to thank some people that are present here today, in addition to Mayor Fung, who I'm sure I will get to you in 1 second. I don't want to keep him waiting too long. In 2006, this council, or members of this council, had the foresight to have its police department pursue national accreditation. That council and those council members, two of whom are here tonight, one was then Councilman Fung, and I saw former Councilwoman Fogarty. I didn't miss you. I saw you over there. Councilwoman McFarland and Councilman Barone passed a resolution to have the agency pursue accreditation. That was a long time ago, and it took quite an effort. And as I said, it's certainly all hands on deck type of effort to achieve something like this. So without further ado, and through the chair, request permission to make a presentation to the mayor. On behalf of the men and women of the Cranston Police Department, we present you with this certificate of National Advanced Accreditation through Accredited. Congratulations. Thank you, Council President.
Council President, if I may, just say a few words.
Hammer and nails, you want to put it on the wall right there? Or?
I'll figure out a nice place in City Hall to display it. But thank you, Council President. Thank you, members of the council. It has been a long process on accreditation, and I'm happy to accept the award on behalf of all of us. It wasn't just myself, former council member Fogarty, but also all of you that have been supportive of the process, because it spanned many administrations to get us to the point where we are today. But most importantly, as the colonel and the lieutenant indicated in this presentation, it is the hard work that have been put forward by the men and women in our police department to really take our department to the next level, to move from the old style policing to the community policing, and do it in a way that has ensured, as the survey reflected, that our residents are safe and moving in a direction where their input is valued and counted. And I really want to take a moment to thank the men and women, as I'm sure all of you will join me too, because it is their hard work that has put us on the national radar now, so that we are meeting the standards, the high standards that are set out in the law enforcement community. So, and it starts at the top. So, Colonel, thank you to you and your command staff, President Antonucci, and to the union, but most importantly to all the men and women of our fine department that protect us every single night. Thank you so much for all that you do every day.
The rest of this portion is open to anyone from the public who wishes to speak on a docketed item. Please note that you need to come up, state your name and address for the record, and there's a 4-minute limit.
Lawrence Laboni, I'm the Director of Economic Development. I'm here to speak on the TACO tax treaty. In this down economic times, as everybody's aware, it is refreshing to see a company as TACO take on a $20 million expansion to build an innovation and development center. This is a testament to TACO's dedication in the success of its employees, customers, suppliers, and the community. In this innovation center, TACO will be able to conduct training classes on product applications, systems, and designs that allow them to train and educate architects, engineers, contractors in the HVAC industry from today and well into the future. The Innovation Center is further evidence to TACO's commitment to the city of Cranston, which they've called home for 70 years. Department of Economic Development, we're in full support of the tax treaty. Thank you.
My name is Jeffrey Gladstone. I worked with TACO for a number of years with regard to these initiatives, and if the council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. One of the things that I was very proud of is seeing this building be built and come into fruition, and the opening, and to see how well it's actually worked. There have been people, potential customers, and new customers from all over the world that have come to this innovation center, and have been able to see the first-class work that TACO does in developing state-of-the-art items for the industry. And it really has worked as well as we had hoped to, and it's just going to be the basis for continued growth, we hope, in the city.
Mr. Gladstone, are you representing TACO this evening?
Yes, I am.
So when we have the actual deliberations that you may be called on to.
Certainly.
This is not a question and answer portion, this is for statements, so.
Understood.
Hold them around, stick around, and we may ask you some questions. or
Thank you.
Someone may. Anyone else from the public? There being none, that section is closed. Under resolutions, there are 2 resolutions listed on the docket for immediate passage rather than referred to committee in accordance with council rules. We would need to suspend council rule number 34B to consider these for immediate passage. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Councilman Arquette.
Just for clarification, Council President, what is the urgency for the resolutions? Is it because the General Assembly is going to terminate? Is that the reason? I just need to know the reason for the urgency that we need to suspend the rules.
Both of these resolutions are sponsored by Councilman Favicchio, so I'll have him explain the urgency.
To have that such a hearing board, so actually we can operate without them, proper forms that anyone knows. So rather than go through committee, it's already, the authorization and legal legislation is under 15.12.470 city code, so it's already authorized. All we have, actually what has to happen is the mayor appoints 5 members who are approved by the council. Obviously, there may be some logistical issues, but we talked to the city clerk as well, and it didn't seem to need to go through the long-term process in order to get approval. There's still some work to do.
I just have one request. We take each resolution singly. We don't take them both at the same time.
Yes, there's differences and differences.
one doesn't really need to be resolved to the committee, as well as just urging our congressional delegation to pass some legislation which could impact, could help the city, cities and towns.
Any further discussion? Clerk, please take the roll on the suspension of the rules.
You can put your hand up.
Point, are we voting on them together?
No, suspension of rules.
Right now, we're voting to suspend the rules, so we can take them individually.
All right, but what if we want to vote to suspend the rules on one and not the other? I would suggest we vote separately on whether to suspend the rules.
Okay, we'll take a vote on the rules to suspend the resolution urging the mayor to fulfill the current vacancies on the Minimum Housing Board of Review. Clerk, please take the roll on that one. This is just to suspend the rules.
Yes.
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 Yes. Now on the resolution, is there a motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, now a motion to suspend the Council Rule Number 34B to consider a resolution urging the Rhode Island Congressional Delegation to adopt the Crime Victims Restitution and Court Fee Intercept Act. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Councilman Stichels.
I'll be voting no on suspension of the rules for this one. I have no idea what this piece of legislation is, and I know that the way Congress names legislation these days, I'm not going to vote for anything without reading it first. So,
Any other further discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes. On the resolution, is there a motion? Yeah, on the resolution, is there a motion?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
Because this resolution is new in front of me right now. We are on the funds, what are we trying to do?
I'll explain. I did something. This came about.
No, I have to caution, I've gotten some input from the public, and because this is being televised, they're complaining, and we know that we're trying to deal with issues with this room, but the microphones are directly tied into the camera, so if you use the microphone and you can hear yourself through the speakers, you know that they can hear you at home. A lot of people are saying, I don't know what the guy was saying, so please use the microphones.
Okay, I'll try. Okay, this came about after some discussions with Chief Justice Joslin of the Municipal Court in answer to some of the things that I had brought up about minimum housing and imposing the fines, and we had passed a resolution not too long ago, a few months back, urging them to impose the fines that are in the code in being diligent in doing so. And in speaking to Chief Justice Joslin, I found that there are about $827,000 in uncollected fines that have been imposed by the municipal court. And one of the things is this act, which is in Congress now, basically extends an existing piece of legislation. Probably most people are familiar with child support obligations being intercepted from tax refunds. Okay, this is just an extension of that same piece of legislation, it also applies to victims of crimes, and now there's an attempt to allow state and municipal courts to retrieve some of the money they've lost from fines that have gone uncollected for years. And I spoke to Senator Reed's office on this legislation, and there's a few groups out there that have some opposition to it, but his office thinks that it's a good bill, and he thinks it certainly could help us. And they're certainly willing to accept our recommendation and look into it and try to, seek some passage. They also spoke to the sponsor of the bill, the senator that sponsored the bill in Washington, so in the Senate. So it's in both houses of Congress. So it's something that would be urging them to do something that could help us if it passes, and we'd be able to have another weapon to retrieve some of those uncollected fines. But the judge did give me the information and the insight. I want to thank him for that. But we do have a substantial, almost $1 million in uncollected fines. $827,000. So I thought that this might be, at first I was going to wait to see if the state did something, but it has to come from the federal government primarily. And so I thought it might be a good idea to urge our congressional delegation to support it.
Any further discussion? Councilman Stichels.
Through the chair to Councilman Favicchio, what you said that some groups are against it. Could you explain
Sure.
what their opposition
Me
is?
through the chair. In talking to Senator Reed's office, he explained that there's some group representing indigent defendants that was concerned that they might some of their money might be taken from this Intercept Act. And I said, well, I'm sure that they can come up with some protection for indigent defendants who might fall into this category. It seems like it would be a very small segment of the people, but that was the main concern that he had heard. The other thing is it's part of the tax intercept, so the tax review committees of the General Assembly, the Congress and the Senate, they may have some take on it. Maybe they want to use it for something else. I don't know. But all in all, he thought that it had a good chance of success, and that he thought that it was a good thing for the municipalities and for the state courts as well. So he welcomed the aid to Senator Reed. Welcomed the resolution.
So as you're presenting it, the act would give the municipal court the power to garnish wages?
No.
To collect fines?
No, if there is an uncollected fine and it's certified to, I would imagine, the federal agency for basically the IRS, after the payment of any other items that are under intercept, such as child support obligations, spousal support obligations, and possibly crime victim restitution orders, I think we would fall behind that in terms of priority, but I think that it would, then be intercepted. Anyone who's familiar with it, they've been doing that for about 15, 20 years now with child support obligations, so that if someone has a delinquent obligation and they haven't paid it for a substantial amount of time, the tax refund can be intercepted to cover the obligation.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes. No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Report of committees. Public Works Committee. Council Vice President Navarro, for your report.
We have easement deed from City of Cranston to Joanne Simpson for Vaughn Lane.
And how was that voted out of committee, Council Vice President?
We have Vice Chair Santa Maria
To the chair,
that conducted the meeting.
I believe there were no objections to this.
Is there a vote for this? Is there a vote to take place on this easement?
It was voted upon, okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
Through the chair, it does need council approval, and it should be in the form of an ordinance, which is what we normally do with easements, but apparently it went in without it last month.
So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? I'm sorry, Councilman Donnie?
I'm sorry, Council President Lupino, thank you. Again, if I may just, through the chair to the clerk, Maria, could you repeat what you just said? I didn't hear it.
The granting of easements by the city is normally done in the form of an ordinance approving and authorizing the purchasing agent to enter into the easement. The ordinance, last month, it was introduced without one apparently.
So if I may, through the chair to the clerk, exactly what happened in that committee meeting?
Because it came through just as an easement deed without an ordinance, there was no advertising of this particular grant, which normally there would be.
Through the chair, Council
Yes.
President, I think we need to, I know as far as, recommit to committee, and have it done in ordinance form and advertised, just so that, we're following, we're giving the people in those areas, if they so wish to respond, without an ordinance, just an easement like this. I don't think that we'd be premature in taking action.
I think the solicitor would like to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I recall this easement, the genesis of it being that there were two neighbors who were in a land dispute between each other, and the city was somehow drawn into the case. So there was a pending litigation case involving the city, and I understand it to be the city's way out of the case, so-called, or to release the city from liability, was to grant a particular easement giving access to one of the neighbors to, I believe it was a shed, which was abutting the other neighbor's property. That's what I recall out of that. So really, it's a settlement in form of an easement.
Councilman Donahue?
And again, Council President Lupino, thank you. I don't have a problem granting the easement. My issue is just, it appears, according to the clerk, it requires an ordinance, which we don't have in front of us.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So what do we do?
The motion on the floor would be to approve, or is there a motion to recommit?
Motion for discussion.
What's the motion on the floor?
There isn't one.
Council President?
Councilman Santa Maria, go ahead.
Thank you. Evan really hasn't given us opinion on, should it be an ordinance or can we pass it like this? Because ordinance has to be advertised.
Well, in this case, I think it could be either way, because it's a settlement of a particular lawsuit that the city was involved. So it involved the genesis of the lawsuit involved property rights of the city and a neighbor. So it clarifies the rights of the parties with respect to that lawsuit. So it's half settlement, half easement. That's the real answer.
So your opinion would be?
Either way.
Was that Solicitor Schultz? I'm sorry. Solicitor Kirschenbaum.
Yes.
What was your ruling on that?
I was just handed a letter from Director Cordy, and apparently my recollection was correct, that there was a piece of property that was owned by the city of Cranston, and the city apparently taxed the shed to one party and not the other. So this was worked out with the tax department, and the only issue was the easement being granted to this person to get to his shed without traversing on another person's property. So it's more than just an easement. It's more than just a building or a business that wants city land. It was a case that involved a multitude of issues, and this is just one of the last issues. So primarily, it's not an easement. Primarily, it's a settlement of a case.
Councilman Stichels.
In light of the clerk's opinion, I'm going to withdraw my second to the motion to approve.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to refer it back to the ordinance committee.
Second.
Motion and a second. Under discussion, we're referring this back, but it really should be, are you saying it should be introduced as an ordinance? So if that's the case, Ms. Wall, if that's the case, Ms. Wall, if this is being referred back, it's not being referred back as an ordinance, so shouldn't it come through if we're following procedure, shouldn't it come before us as an ordinance under new business first?
In light of Solicitor Kirschenbaum's explanation, this appears this should come forward before the council, not to Public Works Committee, but as a settlement coming from the administration, which would normally just be on the docket as a settled claim, the easement granted being the settlement reached by the parties. I was unaware of that when I made my original statement that easements would normally be in an ordinance form. This sort of falls out of that category in light of his statements.
So if I can categorize or summarize, the settlement's been made through the easement. This is just an approval of the council to approve something that's been settled. So I'll entertain a motion.
You got to withdraw a second. Withdraw. Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, that
Thank you,
concludes Public Works. Thank you, Council Vice President. Safety Services and License Committee, Councilman Santa Maria.
Thank you, Council President. Before we start, ordinance 4124, I'd like to recommit that for further study, so I would need a motion from one of my colleagues.
Motion to recommit.
Second.
Does that need a floor vote, Council President?
Okay, no, I mean, it's being brought forward, but you can bring it back. I don't need a vote to do it, just bring it back. We'll take it off the docket.
So I'll go back to Safety
committee.
Services.
Just 12-4?
Just 4124, Council President.
Okay, so we'll remove that from the docket, it goes back to the committee.
Is that?
Proceed.
4122, ordinance and amendment of Title 10, Chapter 32 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Sheffield Road and Merrill Road stop intersection, enumerated. The committee met and voted unanimously to bring this to the full council. Motion's been made to approve.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion on this. Is there a second? Motion is second. And do we have a report? There were several in that
There are
meeting
reports
that-
with every ordinance, Council President.
I'm sorry?
There are reports with each ordinance.
And could you just refresh the council, on what the traffic engineer had to say about this, whether there was a positive or negative?
Okay, let's see, 4122, which is the very first one. The traffic engineer recommended to not approve this ordinance as proposed.
Okay, Councilman Arquette.
Thank you, Council President. I introduced this resolution ordinance at the request of a constituent who lives on Sheffield Road. Situation is that Sheffield runs parallel between Budlong Road and Reservoir Avenue. And it's a major cut through from Reservoir to Budlong Road. The constituent was concerned about the children after 2:30, 3 o'clock who leave Woodridge School. So it's basically a way for pedestrian safety in that area because of Woodridge. I recommend passage.
Councilman Favicchio?
Thank you, Council President. I have a question. I don't know who I could direct it to. It looks like I don't know if the engineer, the traffic engineer isn't here. Mr. Cordy, maybe Mr. Cordy could answer the question. Mr. Capuano. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just wondering, are you familiar with the reasons why this received a no-go from the traffic safety engineer?
That better. Thank you. I did speak to the traffic engineer briefly today, and if you look under the staff analysis, 0 of 9 MUTCD traffic control signal weren't satisfied. And basically, he just said there was really nothing that warranted a stop sign at this location based on the manual that he goes by.
And that's based on no accidents in the last 3 years?
Correct, accidents. I don't have the list of 9, but he went down the checklist and nothing warranted any measures for a stop sign.
And did the police have any comment on this, or do they ever get involved in these? Mr. Capuano? Do the police ever get consulted on?
Just the traffic engineer's report, yes. Yep. Councilman.
I just have through the chair, if I may.
Hold on a second. The document I was handed says that there's a staff analysis, and the fourth point that he makes says that a stop condition already exists in a codified ordinance for Hobson Avenue and Douglas Street.
Council
President, we're on Sheffield Road.
412-2.
412-2.
That's Sheffield and Merrill.
Through the chair, for clarification, the original ordinance that the Councilman Santamaria recommitted back to committee was 4-12-4,
Correct.
Burnside and Douglas. So the ordinance under consideration is 4-12-2, the stop section for Sheffield Road and Merrill Road.
Correct.
All right, there appeared to be some confusion on whether the first one had been recommitted. Thank you.
412-2 is before us now.
Councilman, Vice President Navarro, you had a comment?
I'm all set.
I would like to make a comment.
Council President Lupino.
I'll make this, and this would carry through to the other multi-stop signs that we have before us this evening. Not that I think that the traffic engineer is a god, but I have been constantly against multi-stop signs for means of traffic calming since I've been on this council. It doesn't work. It creates a hazardous situation because there are certain assumptions when you approach a stop sign intersection. I've still been an advocate for traffic tables, for traffic necks, other ways of calming the traffic. Just putting up more and more stop signs doesn't do much for anyone other than the guys that put in brakes on cars. If people do stop. I live in a neighborhood that has multiple multi-stop signs, and I'm amazed because I'll hit the brake, I'll do a real slow down, but I can tell you the guy coming the other direction is just doing 30 miles an hour right through that stop sign. So it's particularly when we have a traffic engineer that says it does not create a hazardous situation or warrants a stop sign, that there are other reasons for people going fast, primarily because they just drive fast. I will not support these. So again, with all due respect for the councilman who's representing his district and the complaints of some people in his district, I don't think stop signs are the answer to traffic calming. So I will be voting against any of these that have a negative endorsement by the traffic engineer. Thank you.
Yes.
No.
Council President, 412.3 is being withdrawn by the sponsor. Evidently, it needs to be redrafted, so I'm also withdrawing 412.3.
So 412.3, and that was the one that has a condition already exists on Hobson and
Correct.
Douglas. Okay.
Has to be
Sorry about that.
So 412.3 is withdrawn, 412.4 has been recommitted.
We're on 412.5.
We're on 412.5. Ordinance and amendment of Title 10, Chapter 32 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Brimfield Road and Amherst Road, multi-way stop signs enumerated. Again, the committee agreed to pass these to the council. This has a recommendation of non-approval on 412.5.
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion is second. Councilman Arquette.
Thank you, President Lupino. Same constituent requested this stop sign. This stop sign is at Amherst and Brimfield. Amherst runs perpendicular to Budlong, and it's also a cut through directly to Budlong. There's a crosswalk right within, I would say, 25 feet of Amherst. And again, it's because of the children exiting school at around 2:30. So because of public safety, because of safety for our school children, I recommend passage.
Through the chair.
Yes, Mr. Capuano.
Thank you, Council President. If everyone does have the traffic report in front of them, I would ask them to look at, under the staff analysis, I believe it's the 5th bullet. The traffic engineer, I spoke to him today, asked me to point this out. The subject ordinance as proposed excludes Sheffield Road, resulting in inadequate language to create a 4-way stop sign condition. So basically what he's saying is that this has been drafted, or the ordinance has been drafted as a 4-way stop sign. However, only 2 roads are noted on the ordinance. So in order to, I would say, properly propose a 4-way stop sign, Sheffield would have to be included in this proposal.
Just for a point of information, that wasn't my intent for a 4-way stop sign, so this was drafted by Mr. Quinlan. I can have this resubmitted and redrafted. Okay?
Yes.
So my intent was Amherst and Brimfield Road. That was my intent. That was my request, but evidently it wasn't fulfilled.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. There was a motion. Someone want to withdraw that? The second is withdrawn. The motion's withdrawn.
I need one, so I
Well,
know.
I'm going to recommit this to ordinance to amend it.
Okay, we're on 512.
Council President, excuse me, just once, can I say one thing, please? Thank you. Councilman Santa Maria, I did speak to the traffic engineer today, and it's previously been policy to, before a stop sign request is submitted by ordinance, the traffic engineer will review it for any council member. In a case like this, I know there was a little miscommunication or it wasn't drafted properly. We can avoid that in the future if it's submitted to the traffic engineer previous to safety services. So just wanted to mention that to you in front of full council. He is willing to review, and we do strongly suggest it, that any ordinances that are going to be put forth for a stop sign, that the traffic engineer does have the chance to review it, just to check the language in the content of that proposed ordinance for a stop sign, whether it be single or multi, or whatever.
That's basically addressed to every council member that they can do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you,
problem.
Council
Thank
President.
you. Again, 512-1.
Last one, 512-1, ordinance and amendment of Title 10, Chapter 32 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, no parking on certain streets, generally Strathmore Place. This was, again, approved by the committee. We have a positive recommendation from the Traffic Safety Review. Councilman Stikos, if anyone has any questions, he's the sponsor of this ordinance.
I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
The motion, the second. Discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Nothing further from this committee, Council President.
Okay, thank you, Majority Leader. Finance Committee. Paul Arquette.
Thank you, Council President. The Finance Committee met and passed several resolutions, one ordinance. We passed the resolution authorizing motor vehicle tax abatements. Contain a motion, passage.
Motion to approve.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? No discussion. Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Next on the agenda, Council President, Finance Committee met and passed tax interest waiver approvals.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
It's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Next, the Finance Committee met and passed a resolution unanimously pertaining to purchasing school buses for aging fleet. Move for passage.
Point of clarification, need a second, Mr. President.
Okay.
I'll second it for a discussion.
First of all, a motion.
I made the motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Just, yes, thank you, Council President. Just a question, a clarification to the chairman. It says the bonding, I thought we had discussed leasing. It was a lease.
That's an excellent question, Councilman. The title gives no indication of the content because the title was retained when the original ordinance was amended. So it was amended. I kept the title. It is a lease to purchase. The administration is in favor. You can get that from Mr. Strom. It was worked on between Mr. Strom, Mr. Sisson, and Mr. Nero and myself, and we're all on board. But I'd like Mr. Strom to speak on the resolution, please.
Before you speak, the new title says, Resolution of the City Council in support of replacing the fleet of aging school buses. It doesn't make any reference.
To bond.
So the bonding came through on the on the docket, but the new resolution reads.
I was present at the hearing, it was amended, that's why I saw that, my copy says bonding in here, and but I certainly I supported it in committee and I support it here.
Thank you, Counsel. Basically, I had a discussion with Councilman Arquette when he was looking to propose the financing for acquisition of buses for the school department's transportation fleet. At that time, I stated to him that it shouldn't be through a bonding process, it should be through a lease purchase. That's when it was changed at the committee meeting and approved. Going forward, I think what this does is it urges the Transportation Subcommittee of the School Department to proceed ahead and looking at X amount of dollars, in this case it's $600,000, to acquire either used or new buses depending on what their needs are and the size of the buses. I did an analysis through our fiscal advisor, and it looks like new buses could be financed through a debt service of a 10-year period, and any used type buses, it would be through a 3-year period. So those would be the options that I think we need to tell the subcommittee that if they, whatever avenue they want to take to purchase, it'll be for new over 10 years and for used over a 3-year period. I think that's important, and I do want the council to know that this would be in the school department's operating budget. It would not be through the debt service of the city. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any further discussion? Councilman Arquette?
Thank you, Councilman. I just want to elaborate a bit more. This does have a fiscal cap. You see on line 37, more than $600,000. On line 36, it does specify lease to purchase, if you see that. Also, we did a study of the transportation fleet, and we do have an aging fleet. Majority of the buses are well at their limit, so the council and the school committee needs to act on this. So in the near future, we do have some new buses to replace the old. This amount will replace about 25% of the buses. So at least we will be helping to solve the problem. So I urge passage. Thank you.
Any further discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes. No.
Yes.
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 Yes. 5-12-2.
Thank you, Council President. Finance Committee met and passed this ordinance unanimously to give a 10-year tax incentive program for TACO. I move passage.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Council Vice President Navarro?
Thank you. I just want to know the size of the project. Do they have a number on what the expenditure is going to be for this project?
Is Mr. Gladstone here? You can direct the questions through the chair to Mr. Gladstone.
The project is pretty much complete. I'm not aware of what the final amount of money was in total for the project. But when you drive by, actually, you might think that the addition that's been put there has been there all along, because part of the architectural plan was to make it look as it was a contiguous part of the building. But it already is complete and it's in full working order.
Okay. If I may, Mr. DeBoni, I just want to get how much of a tax credit would they be receiving their first year?
This was based on our 10-year tax incentive, so for the next 10 years, it would be 10%, 10%, 10%.
Do you have that amount?
I do not have that amount. But the final project, the figures that I have was $20 million for the expansion.
So 20 million, and it says here that it's increased the tax base, but obviously they're going to be they're going to get concession and pay 90%, 10% the first year.
Right.
You don't have the amount of
I don't
what the
have
city's
that amount from the tax assessor.
Did we ever have that amount? I know this was in committee. Was this discussed in committee? I just would like to know those figures if someone has them handy. I just like to know for the taxpayer what, when we're talking tax incentives, I think it's a good thing, and I am going to vote for it, but I'd like to know number one, the impact that this is having, because it does work, benefit the residents, but also when they hear tax incentives or tax, credits and things like that, in these times, we have to justify to them, the whole economic process here.
Point of information. I think Section 3 might answer your question, Councilman. Talks about first year, second year, third year, and how much TACO will be exempt. It's a 10-year exemption.
No, I understand that. I'd like to know actual tax dollars that are being, first, what's the 10% the first year, what's going to be, I can figure the rest out, but
I understand that, and I understand the point of your question, and it's a very valid question. And I'm sorry that I don't have that answer. But one of the things I do want to clarify is that the tax abatement or the tax treaty that we're talking about here only applies to the improvements to the building. So this is only an improvement to one section of the building. The taxes are being paid as they had been historically on the rest of it. This is only the incremental increase in value of the building. So while it's very important to TACO, it doesn't impact the entire tax bill. TACO has been a taxpayer for a very long time.
And I understand that, and we appreciate TACO. They're doing a fantastic job here in the city. I just I'll dispense with that, that information. I will support this. It's a good thing all around. I just wanted to know if anybody had those, just what those numbers were, whether it's 10,000, 20,000. But that's fine. I will support this.
And lastly, it's the tax assessor through the valuation process determined what that number is going to be. So that's within the purview. It wasn't something that TACO created. This was something that was given to us by the city.
And if I may, Mr. DeBoni, if I could have that sent to me just so I can have a copy of what the actual, the incremental increases and what the abatements are going to be, and I'd be satisfied with that. But I'll support this for now.
Councilman Santa Maria.
Thank you, Council President. One quick question of Mr. DeBoni or this gentleman.
Okay.
To the chair.
On the second page, it says, whereas TACO is committed to increase its employment over the course of 5 years.
What line is that?
It's on I have 5 years.
Line what?
Line 54.
Go ahead.
Okay, question. Can you be a little bit more specific? How many jobs, full-time, are they full-time equivalents? Because in the original tax incentive bill that we passed, it was meaningful job creation. I want to get away from those general terms. Are you going to be hiring more people?
The intent is to continue to grow the business, to center it in Cranston, and it's already proved to be successful. And what we're hoping to do, TACO obviously, is to continue to increase the amount of its revenues, and as it increases its revenues, it will increase its workforce as needed. So we can't right now point to specifically the number of new jobs that are created. One of the things that this center is designed to do is to increase the opportunity for TACO's current employees by increasing the training and increasing the in-house service that we're able to give. One of the things that TACO is very proud of is how it treats its employees, how it gives them the opportunity to start at one position, to train internally, and then work their way up. And this is one innovative center that's going to allow them to do that, and it really puts us a lot closer to being able to do a good job for our employees and service their needs.
How many people do you employ now, roughly?
I don't have that number, and I apologize for
That's
that.
it. No need to apologize. Just trying to get a.
Excuse me, somewhere in the vicinity of 400.
Thank you, Council President.
Councilman Stichels.
In response to Mr. Santa Maria's question, this agreement is not contingent on creation of employment. It doesn't require TACO to create any jobs in order to receive the tax credit. Is that correct?
Part of TACO's working with the city was looking for the ability to continue to grow its facilities here and to be able to service its employees. What ended up happening was we took a facility from out of the city. We were able to combine that facility into our infrastructure here in Cranston and expand where we were, the work we were doing here. And that in turn led to increased employment. There isn't a specific number that's required, no, but this is an opportunity that's already proven successful to have a world leader continue to base its operations in Cranston and to continue to grow its workforce.
Well, I guess I would like to echo the comments that I appreciate what TACO does in the community and the fact that it is based here. And I think, as Mr. DeBoni knows, I've been critical of past incentive programs that have been, one in particular, granted to a medical office. But my understanding of an incentive program is that a company needs essentially a break on taxes in order to take certain actions that are going to increase employment. And if I'm understanding this correctly, and I wasn't at the Finance Committee hearing, if I understand this correctly, in this case, TACO has built a facility, has made a decision to build a facility in Cranston, which is great, but then after the fact, we're asked to give an incentive. And the question I would have is, an incentive is to get somebody to do something, but if that's already been done, it's no longer an incentive. That's number one. Number two is that Mr. Santa Maria's point about that this doesn't seem at all contingent on the creation of employment. And then the third point, Councilman Navarro's point, that incredibly, we can't even say what this is going to cost taxpayers, because any tax break that we give to TACO, those taxes have to be made up by all the other taxpayers. And so we as council members need to analyze, well, it's going to cost everybody else a little bit more, but if we give TACO this break, or whatever business, this tax break, it's really, when you weigh these two things, it's a plus for the city. But in this case, you're asking us to retroactively give a tax break for something that's already happened.
Well, I don't think that necessarily represents the manner in which this entire project has gone forward. When we started the first expansion, and we discussed it with city officials, it was a question as to whether or not we were going to continue to build in Cranston, and we were going to center our manufacturing facility here. It was based upon our work with the administration and certain assurances that we got that we were going to be welcome here, that this was going to be something that was going to be a positive for both TACO but also for the city. And we went forward and we had our first tax treaty that was based upon that. We then had a determination to make as to whether or not we were going to put this new facility in Cranston, and there were assurances that were made that please come here, continue to develop your business, continue to build this world headquarters of a state-of-the-art facility in Cranston, because it really is one of the leading institutions or one of the leading manufacturing companies in all of Rhode Island, and please keep it here in Cranston. And there was a commitment made to do that. And there was an understanding that there would be a concomitant treatment with regard to the tax issues. And one of the things that you had indicated before was that we have to weigh it because the impact that it will have on TACO would have also an impact on the other taxpayers. Well, that would be true if, for instance, there was an existing facility that was taken off of the tax rolls. What we had here is a situation in which the current facility, which we have improved and which is already proved to have expanded tremendously, the size of the workforce and also the business itself, and has moved it towards being a leader in its field. And so we've already done that. Then we're taking our existing structure and we're improving on the existing structure. It isn't on any new land. It's actually an addition to the tax base for the city of Cranston, because had we not done this, it isn't as if there would have been taxes from somewhere else. These taxes wouldn't even have existed. So over a period of time, it's true that we're getting the graduated tax treatment for this new improvement, but in the long run, this is adding to employment, it's adding to the tax base, and it's also adding to a manufacturing infrastructure. One of the things that I went to a dinner the other day, and I was speaking with Mr. White, and he's now a member of a think tank in Washington, and his focus right now is how to increase manufacturing in the United States and what changes have to be made to create an environment in which more companies like TACO can continue to grow. I have all the faith that TACO is going to continue to be successful, continue to be a leader, and is going to continue to be a tremendous net positive for the city of Cranston, both in terms of its tax base, in leadership, in manufacturing, and in employment.
I think there's some other assumptions that need to be made here. Anyone entering into the type and the breadth and the scope of the project that TACO endeavored on, first of all, they made a commitment to the city of Cranston to do this. They were made aware that there is this 10-year tax incentive, which is, in the scheme of things, not crucial to their addition. But somewhere along the line, someone had the foresight to tell them that we can't promise you the tax incentive. If and when and such time that your building is completed and you apply for it and you meet all the conditions that need to be met, then and only then, by a vote of the city council, will that be approved. So the enticement is when they first enter into any of these situations. So The other thing that's not being said to the public, because I know it's now we're entering into election time, is the fact that there's a lien placed on any of these incentives. If TACO or any company that doesn't meet all of the parameters that are outlined in the tax incentive, we have a right to collect the money. It's a lien placed on that stays for the entire 10 years. And it's only satisfied at the end of the 10-year period. So, that being said, is there any other discussion? Mrs. Tykos, I'll give you a couple more minutes.
Okay. I'd like to ask Mr. DeBoni if that, what the council president just said was accurate. My understanding in the case of the medical office was that you came forward with that before the construction.
No, it was a completion.
It was a completion.
Yes.
So is that the practice is only to give the tax incentive after the project is completed?
Yes, because the taxes don't take effect until the project is completed. So they have to come before us and put the application in before they have a CO, which they did. And in this case, which is different, they didn't put the application in. Councilman Arquette put through the tax treaty that's in front of you. The other thing is this tax treaty doesn't take effect to 2013 taxes. And again, it's only on the addition, it's not on the rest of their taxes.
Do you know what the commercial tax rate is?
For their property?
No, well, for everybody's property. I mean, does anyone here know what it is? I mean, wouldn't we multiply that by 20 million to get the cost of this tax treaty?
Councilman, the current commercial rate for this year, the tax bill's coming out is $34.26 per thousand.
All right, so if we multiplied 34.26 times 20 million, would that answer Mr. Navarro's question?
No.
No.
No, because that's not the value of the building, the addition to the building.
Do we have a value of the addition to the building?
The tax assessor does have that information.
But we don't have it here.
I would like to point out one thing from a legal perspective, in that some of the comments appear to be the propriety of having a tax incentive program in the first place, rather than the subject matter at hand. What we're talking about here is someone who lawfully and validly entered into a construct of ordinances that have been passed by this council now that have been on the books, in my estimation, for over 12 years. So if we want to have a discussion about whether or not the city of Cranston should, in the first instance, have a tax incentive program, I think that's a far different discussion than someone who comes here in good faith, relies on the ordinances that you passed, and complies with each and every restriction that is on the books now. If we want to recommit the whole tax scheme to a committee to study whether or not it's working, I think that's fine, but I don't think it's fair to an applicant to have to justify something that this council has passed for over 10 years.
Councilman Favicchio?
Thank you, Council President. I was at the committee meeting and did hear all of the presentations made. And, I have to say, I don't know how many other companies we have in Cranston that have been here 60 years, at least 60 years, who have, made this their world headquarters and are putting another $20 million into their property and creating more jobs, hopefully within the city of Cranston. I don't know how we can have, that can be a negative. I think it's just incredulous to think that, we're going to say, well, are we losing, 50,000 in taxes this year? I don't see anyone else coming in and improving their property with a $20 million investment and increasing their manufacturing, which they could very easily go to Mexico or China and just take it out of the United States, let alone Cranston. So I think we should be happy that we have a company that's committed to staying here and growing here. And I don't think that we're giving the store away at all. I think it's a tremendous partnership. So I'm in favor of this.
Councilman Arquette.
Thank you, Council President. Kudos to you, Councilman Favicchio. Yes, I did introduce this legislation. TACO is in Ward 3. TACO's been a very good friend to Cranston. very good friend to the community. At a terrible economic recession, Mr. White chose to infuse $20 million and build an addition to his building. I mean, that's a risk. And that $20 million created numerous jobs for carpenters, electricians, pipe fitters, steel workers. All were paid, all spent money in Cranston, in community, Basil's Pizza, a number of businesses along Cranston Street, which helped the local community here. Mr. White does enormous service to the city of Cranston in other ways, and I won't enumerate on that. But I think it's very, very sad to see the council, certain members of the council, being difficult on this legislation when Mr. White will create jobs, will expand, hires many people in the city of Cranston. Some of my neighbors work at TACO. He's very friendly to his employees. He chose to make Cranston Street and Cranston, Rhode Island, his international headquarters. I mean, come on, let's help Mr. White as Mr. White has helped Cranston and pass this legislation.
Any further discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
No.
Yes.
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 Yes. We're going to take a 5-minute break before we go into Claims Committee. We'll convene promptly at 20 of. Claims Committee, Stephen Stikos, Chair.
Claims Committee.
This is just a listing of claims that were settled by vote of the Claims Committee.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
The motion is second. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. We're on public hearings. Any members of the public who would like to speak on any undocketed items? Please state your name and address, and please limit your remarks to 4 minutes. There being no speakers, we'll move on to election of city officials.
Council President? Do you want to speak?
You were going to put a new system in, and it's not helping somebody who's being delayed by the Veterans Administration to pick up his hearing.
Mr. Tomlins, I remind you that there is, we can make accommodations for those hard of hearing. I feel like I need it myself some nights, but you can call ahead and get a device such as Mr. Cordy wears so you can hear all the meeting, if you like.
Do you wish to speak?
Want to speak?
Well, yeah.
Can you speak, Council President?
Well, again, he didn't respond when I first asked, so go ahead.
Having heard all that, Madame and Messieurs, and welcome back and back and back to the council. Thank you for the opportunity. Richard Tomlins, Tomlins, 400 Farmington Avenue. I'll make a couple of quick comments and a couple of the, even though it's not really specific to the agenda, But there's always items that come up on the agenda that we don't seem to have all the answers to. As a matter of fact, even the council members don't. So how can the public understand what you're voting on? I think a lot more research, whether it's the bus situation or whether it's the idea of tax relief. I could stand up here and make you a case from what I know for TACO, but that doesn't, or TACO, how do you pronounce it? But that isn't the answer to everything. Nobody had any dollars and cents. Nobody could tell what the tax base is, what it's going to be, and what it's going to be for the future. That's what the public wants to know. I don't think anybody would deny the contributions they make to the community. I mean, particularly there's hundreds of thousands of dollars by the owner that goes into the community, a lot into music, which is something very near and dear to my heart. So once again, I'm saying when things come to the council, there should be a written, everybody should have something before them that tells them what the consequences are, not just to vote for or against. The other thing I want you to know, that I have made a lot of study on the allegiance to the flag. I have contacted all the local military groups. I've gone to the Defense Department. I've gone to everybody that's involved in this. I've done research, and I will continue on that, and I will have a package to give you at the next meeting in July. This will not go unanswered. My father spent over 7 months in the hospital during that war. I had family members killed. I go all the way back to Pearl Harbor. I can remember it yesterday, and all the people that sacrificed for this company, and that's the representative of all of those people. It's the only thing we have. That's the only thing we have that represents the sacrifices that was made for this country that allows me to speak here tonight. If it wasn't for that, my great-grandmother came from Germany, and I'd be addressing you in German tonight. So I just want the council to know, no matter what support I get or not support, and by the way, it will be an issue in the campaign also. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public speaking on a non-agenda item? There being none, that section is closed. Election of city officials, zoning board of review. Just as a reminder, because I know Councilman Stichels had a question, but the way the ordinance reads on the zoning appointments, there are 5 regular members. There's 1 member from Ward 1 or 2. There's 1 member from Ward 3 or 5, an additional member from Ward 4 or 6. There's an eastern representation, which would be anyone who lives east of Reservoir or New London, and a western representative, anyone living west of Reservoir or New London, and we have 4 alternates. So tonight first business is David I. Mundy, a reappointment as a regular member. He's an eastern member. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
The motion is second. Any discussion? Councilman Stichels.
Later on the agenda is my request for a report on a resolution that this council passed concerning the way the zoning board does their business. If you recall, that's the ordinance that urged them to consider one case at a time rather than waiting until the late at night to decide the cases. And I don't think that we should approve any new members or any reappointments until we have an answer for a resolution that this council passed and that stated quite clearly in the resolution that we wanted an answer by April. So I'm going to move to table these reappointments.
There's already a motion and a second. And I would remind the good councilman that what we passed was a resolution. It's a request, nothing more than a request. They can act on it, or they cannot. We've been consistently told, and it's in our charter, and it's in state law, that we not be have any powers over the zoning board other than the appointments. They are supposed to be an autonomous body. They conduct their business the way they would wish to conduct their business. The present City of Cranston Zoning Board conducts their business not unlike many zoning boards throughout the state. Anyone else wish to speak on this appointment? Councilman Navarro.
Excuse me, a point of information. Councilman Stichels had made a motion. Was there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion on the floor for approval. That's what was recognized. We have a motion and a second.
It takes precedence over a motion on the floor.
Correct.
So what's the motion on table?
Robert's Rules of Order, I mean, it's a table is a...
The table, yeah, all right. So it's discussion at this.
Councilman Favicchio.
Thank you, Council President. Aren't we going to, my only problem with tabling it is, aren't we going to slow down what the zoning board does if we don't appoint the 3 members? We're talking about moving Councilman Stichels was worried about moving the cases along, but if we delay appointing new members, we may cause more delays than are necessary, and I don't think it's something that we have total control of at this point.
Councilman Santa Maria.
Thank you, Council President. One of my pet peeves of zoning is that they move things out of order. And people come expecting to hear things first and they hear it last, and that's one of your pet peeves too. So taking these things out of order is something we shouldn't do. You know, it should be by a vote, and we really should do things in order. When people come, they know when they're going to speak, when their issue's coming up. So I really think we should hear this in the order and stick to the way we do things. We can always address that later.
Council Vice President Navarro.
With the zoning board of review, Council President, you mentioned that they're autonomous and state law regulates, and I understand that. And I don't know if appointing new members at this point, or I should say these are all existing members, so they're sitting there now, well, not now, but they're reappointments, so they can serve out a certain amount of time before they get appointed again, by ordinance. And I just want to, Councilman Stichels mentioned that there was a resolution approved by this entire council, for them to look into maybe adopting new regulations, whatever the case may be. The issue that I have, let them be autonomous, but they should at least respond to us. We're pretty grown adults, and if they say, no, we're not going to change them, that's fine, but at least acknowledge us. We send them a resolution, don't they have an attorney? They don't have, at least give us the respect. We changed it from an ordinance to a resolution, gets sent to the zoning board, and what, they just blow us off like we don't matter? That's the problem that I have. So at least respond to us and say, no, we're not going to do it. Well, that's fine. Okay, fine. So, that's one of the reasons why I want to table this, because someone should let them know, and it should be in the record that, we're expecting a response from them, even if we're not going to like it. Because we do appoint these board members. So I'm going to, I'm in favor of tabling it until, they respond to us and let us know, what their plans are regarding a request from the council. Like you said, it's a request. We're not asking, but at least respond to us. Thank you.
That has nothing to do with the appointments. There was a motion and a second to table. Any further discussion on tabling? Clerk, please take the...
Thank you, Council President. The only problem I have is the zoning board is an autonomous body. The only influence we have, if any, is we appoint members to the zoning board. That's it. The zoning board sets up its own rules and regulations, how it wants to conduct business. The council shouldn't impede on that process. Now, if we table these appointments, are we using undue influence? Are we holding the zoning board hostage? are we playing fairly? And I don't think we are. So I say, let the zoning board operate the way it wants to operate. It's an autonomous body. If the general public comes here in numbers, and public outcry with petitions, with complaints, I think I would act at that point. But right now, I only see one, maybe two council people that have an issue, and I don't think it merits our undue influence over the zoning board. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion at hand, which is to table? And a reminder, motion yes means we table it, means we don't vote on this. No means we do not table it. So, clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. President, point of order. I think Robert's rule states that if there's one objection, you can't take things out of order.
We're not taking anything out of order.
So you want to just vote on it in the order that it's in?
Yes.
Okay.
Could I clarify my motion?
Clarify your motion.
My motion would be to table these until the next council meeting.
Then you'll have
Clerk, please take the roll.
No.
Yes.
No.
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 Yes.
No. On the main motion, which was David Iamundi reappointment, the regular member at Eastern, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Adam Seeby is a reappointment as the first alternate. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. And Lori Carlino, reappointment second alternate. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion made, second. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Any report of city officers? Executive communications.
Are we on here? Yes. Thank you, Council President. Cranston Fire Deputy Chief Robert Croce is requested to be placed on pension. He's met all the requirements, and we urge you to approve.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. And Deputy Chief is here. Congratulations.
And we have, thank you. Cranston Police Sergeant Donald Capuano is requested to be placed on pension. Sergeant Capuano has met all of his requirements, and we urge you to approve.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. And Donald Capuano is here.
Cranston Fire Chief William McKenna is requested to be continued in service for 1 year. Chief McKenna has met all the requirements, and we urge you to approve.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. We have, advice and consent. Is the administration presenting these, clerk? Conservation commissions, are those from,
The administration would like to appoint Matthew T. Jerzyk as a member of the Conservation Commission, along with Barry S. Fontaine also.
is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none?
Discussion.
Councilman Arquette.
And I just need to know
Could you use the microphone, please, Councilman?
yes. I'd like to know with the 88 Woodbury Road, what ward that would be? Ward 1?
Ward 1.
Thank you. And with 36 Redford Drive, what ward is that?
What's the address, Councilman?
36 Redwood.
36 Redwood Drive, what ward would that be?
I can look into that for you. I don't know
That's
off the top of my
Garden
head.
City, so
I
that's
think
probably Ward
that's
6.
6.
Ward 6, thank you. I just want to make sure we're dispersing it fairly throughout the city, Council President.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second on Matthew Jerzyk. Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Capuano,
All set?
do you have a,
Barry Fontaine also. I'm sorry, I thought I said that the first time.
Motion to approve.
Yes, I did. Okay.
He did himself.
is there a motion
Motion to approve.
and a second? Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Capuano, before you leave the podium, I just want to take a minute because on behalf of the council, I want to thank you for your service. This may indeed be your last council meeting. I know you're leaving
Yes, it
us
is.
for hopefully greener pastures. And although we haven't always agreed, you've done a good service for the city of Cranston. I applaud you for the time you spent here, and thank you for your professionalism throughout all of it. And we wish you luck on behalf of the council.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Rita Mesberg, Leonid Mesberg, Tatiana Mesberg, and Paul S. Cantor Esquire, their attorney, $2,500 wrongful death. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? The motion is second. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I'll call upon Solicitor Krishnabhan for a report on Broad Rock, and I'll ask for a motion to go into executive session. This is a matter that involves some
I thought too it was introduction tonight and the
Well,
the Public Works was going to have the...
The purpose of tonight's meeting, as the council is aware, at this Broad Rock issue was first held before Public Works Committee, and it was discussed in open session with the public being aware of it. The purpose for tonight's meeting is to acquaint the council. Again, there was a preference by the council to be updated on the negotiations with Broad Rock, and the purpose of tonight is to discuss the legal ramifications of Broad Rock in executive session. The purpose tonight is not to pass any particular item, so to speak, but to acquaint you with the different terms and to ask at the end of it that there be a special session established, if the council so desires, for a potential treaty to be ratified.
Councilman Stichels?
Yeah, I'll request a motion to go into executive session.
Through the chair,
Yes.
since it's not listed on the docket, the matter came up at the last minute, we would need, it can be taken up for discussion purposes, and it can be an executive session, but there has to be unanimous consent of the council to do so.
Councilman Stichels?
Don't we have to, under the open meetings law, don't we have to give notice if we're going to meet in executive session?
Oh, do you want me to answer that?
Go ahead, you can answer.
Open meetings law does not require notification, advertising an executive session. It can be taken up and a motion made to go into executive session during a meeting. It's not always anticipated, so it's not a violation in that sense.
This is clearly not something that was let me say it this way, negotiations on this particular project started months ago, and they ended probably Friday around noontime.
Yes.
I'd like to move that the council convene an executive session under Rhode Island General Law 42-46-585, the section pertaining to acquisition, lease, or disposition of public property to discuss the
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes, we'll go into executive session. We expect to be half an hour, 45 minutes.
Motion to come out of executive session?
Second.
Yes.
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 So moved.
Second.
Yes.
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 Thank you, Council President. I had a request of the administration as far as the street sweeping policy, how the administration goes about handling that, if they want to enlighten me.
Yes, Councilman, we have an alternating every year policy where we start on the east side one year and the next year we start on the west side and work back. This year we started on the east side. We're working our way across the city. We sweep every street at least once. The main highways and intersections we do 2 to 3 times. The reason for that being is a lot of the cars will carry the sand off into a main intersection after we've already swept it because we hadn't gotten to the side street yet, so you can see why that happens. We have three street sweepers.
Okay, three?
Yes, that's three, 1, 2, 3. And unfortunately, one of them needs some major repair, so we haven't had that sweeper for use this year. We hope to have it in service late in the season, but we've been operating with 2 sweepers, and that does slow us down a bit. Plus, whenever it rains, we can't sweep effectively, so we can't sweep then either. But that's the basic procedure and policy.
What's the cost of a street sweeper? You have any idea? Could you get that for me?
Yeah, I sure can.
Okay. Next question. Could the council get a memo from the administration as to what ward the street sweepers are in at what time, and when they leave that ward, what ward they're going next, to give us an update? Because I get calls from constituents that say they need their streets swept, and they ask me, when is the sweepers going to come by? And I really don't have the answer for them. I refer that to the administration, to Carlos or yourself. So I think the council needs to be a bit more informed as to where the street sweepers are currently, what ward they're working on, and perhaps a memo the next ward. So we have some information as far as to relay to our constituents.
What I would suggest, Councilman, is that they're not necessarily ward specific. If they get on a street, they're trying to get as much of that street done as they can. I don't know if it's possible to deliver what you're asking for, but let me see what we can put together for you.
Well, if they're working from the east side to the west side, I'm sure the wards would be, on the east side of the city would be, 3, 5, and 2? Or 1, 2, and 3?
I do understand how the wards are laid out, Councilman. What I'm suggesting to you is when you've got a long artery, it's going to be cutting across numerous wards, okay? Our general path is to move from east to west or west to east, but let me see what I can put together without putting too much of a demand on my people as far as record keeping as to where the sweepers are and when.
I understand.
Okay?
Just a suggestion, if the administration would look into having 4 sweepers, 2 starting on the east side and 2 starting on the west side, and ultimately merging in the middle, I think that would be much more sufficient.
We're lucky that it was. Councilman Stichels.
Just wondering if we've gotten a response from the zoning board on our resolution.
Councilman Stichels, what I might suggest is that Mrs. Montanaro her term has expired. She is serving as the chairwoman of the Zoning Board of Review under the extension agreement that comes with that position. Mr. Riolis is the secretary of the Zoning Board of Review. It wouldn't be beyond your duties if you wanted to write a letter to Mr. Riolis and ask for a response.
Well, I really think it would be better if the letter came from you as the president of the council, because it isn't my resolution, it's now the council's resolution.
It is, but I do know that when we passed that, I did vote against that, so.
Excuse me?
I did vote against that resolution, so. I can write the letter if you like, and I would just state that it would be the, do we have a consensus? Is everyone looking for that response?
Through the chair?
Yeah.
I did contact Mr. Riolis with regard to this. He indicated, and I believe I sent an email, Councilman Stichels, did I copy you on that, to Steve Marcella? It was taken up at their zoning board meeting. I don't know if it was on the docket or not. However, he did not put anything in his minutes. They did not take a vote on that. I did tell him it would be on our agenda tonight and that we would be sending up a follow-up request with regard to it. So I think it would be appropriate for you to direct me to, if the council is in agreement, I can forward the letter to him on behalf of the council seeking that response.
I did get that copy of that email, and I think that would be fine if,
Council President?
with me.
Go ahead.
I can tell you I was at the last zoning meeting and things haven't changed, so if you want a letter from me telling you that, I'll be glad to send you one. So I'm not sure that they're cognizant of the letter or going to follow it, so, but things are status quo, just to let you know.
Okay, Councilman Donahue.
Thank you, Council President Lupino.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Did that get resolved that Maria was going to write the
Yes.
letter? Yes?
You did say you would write that, yes.
I will forward a letter to them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Stichels, and thank you, Council President Lupino. If I may, just very quickly, I know it's late, through the chair, to Director Lopez. I've received a number of phone calls from residents in the city regarding rats in the neighborhood, and so I know that the administration's been working on it. I was hoping to get a report tonight on where things are at.
Councilman Donahue, thank you, and Council President Lupino. We are aware that there's a localized outbreak in Ward 2, and just last Wednesday, I was out there with our rat crew and our Director of Inspections and Standards, Stan Peichel, and we did walk through that neighborhood, and we found that there was a home that had a cesspool, I think that's what it's called, the cesspool, that was no longer in use, but I guess in that neighborhood that was a common thing back in the day, and it seemed to be that one home was providing the haven and necessary conditions for the rats to be there. So we did talk to the owner. We did cover up the cover of the cesspool, and we're planning to go back out there this Wednesday for further follow-up. But we also have cited, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 homes in that neighborhood for a variety of reasons, ranging from uncontrolled debris in the backyard to just improper maintenance of their garbage and trash. So it's a little bit of a neighborhood issue, but we're very much on top of it, and we feel confident that we've got a good handle on it. And one of the other things that I would like to throw out there for your consideration is that we are seeing more of these calls related to the rats and rodents because of the unseasonably warm winter. So basically in the winter, when they would probably die or starve and maybe not have a chance to reproduce, well, this nice warm winter gave them all the time in the world to reproduce and multiply, and I think that's why we're seeing more of them in this time.
Thank you, Director.
Mr. Councilman Santa Maria.
Thank you, Council President. I just have a couple. Carlos, I have talked to you on these, but the traffic light on Randall and Cranston Street, what's the status?
We're ready to move on it. Obviously today, due to the bad weather, we couldn't get out there, but my understanding is that the part is ready and they're ready to work on it. It's just a matter of it not being raining and hopefully having some dry weather.
Okay. Go down the street a little. I talked to you about the crosswalk
In front of St. Mary's Church.
It's obliterated, and they would like a kind of a warning sign, maybe coming in each direction. When the masses get out, as you know, it bends. So that's a real big safety issue. I know that the feast is coming up, so I'd like to, if you could put that on the top of your list for me.
Hey, I live in that neighborhood too,
Yes.
so believe me, I want it to look good. So we will be doing our annual, going through the neighborhood and making sure everybody's in tip-top shape. And the crosswalk, we're going to take a look at it when we repaint the stripes and the striping on the street. So all of your concerns will hopefully be addressed.
Okay, and last but not least to the administration, the old police station, are we going back out to bid with that? With the new tax assessments, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes, sir, we're putting a bid together as we speak.
Timeframe, month and a half, 2 months?
We should have something out to the public by August.
Good, thank you.
Carlos, to piggyback on some of the concerns, first of all, the rat issue and the rodent issue, there's some accusations and some snowballs thrown back and forth between those that have the ability to assess fines and those that bring forward these fines to a particular body. And it's been my assessment that the city has been rather lax on the time frame. And therein lies some of the problem. So particularly where we have rodents, I'm not talking about gutters that are falling off the house or unkempt grass. We have rodents. The city, if we don't have a time frame where people need to address the issue, then if you need this council to enact legislation or an ordinance to do that, we need to do that. There's been too much of a leniency on those that go back and check on some of these violations, and that's been the frustration, I believe, of the court. There's been some snowballs thrown back and forth about the court not acting, and the allegation is that you need to be a little stricter. They need to act. I mean, you're fined for something, act on it, and there are no other remedies that we have to step in and do what we have to do and charge them, so.
Council President, on the rat issue, I believe that our inspectors have been pretty decent about it. I mean, they do take into account people's socioeconomic situation, and some of these people, quite frankly, either are elderly or there's some sort of condition that prevents them from addressing some of the issues that contribute to the rat situation. But as far as what the city does for the constituents, I think that our rat patrol has really been on top of it. I mean, they are limited to baiting and helping the constituent locate where the problem is. We give them advice on how to clean up. I personally have gone out there so much that I'm becoming sort of a rat expert, so I can look at a yard and I can tell you where the rats have been because you can tell by their trail. I mean, we really have been out there. The one thing I will tell you is that it is difficult with some of the elderly people and also with some of the people who don't understand that they can help themselves by simply covering their trash or not putting their rotting food out there in a plastic bag only. So those are things that we are trying to address with people, and I would say that as far as the rat situation, we have been doing a decent job. And as far as some of the other
So is that communication sent as an automatic? Do we get a call from someone that's complaining about rats, and will you automatically send out what you just told me? Do we send them out a pamphlet that says, check these items? Is that being done?
Our rat experts do go out there when they're called. Due to the heavy volume, they are a little bit backlogged, but I know Director Cordy has instructed an additional person to be helping with the backlog.
But see, that's the point. If they're backlogged, if you receive a call and you're getting a call about rodents, shouldn't the immediate reaction say, we're backlogged, we will be on our way, however, these are the parameters that you should be, or these are the steps you should be taking to help prevent. So maybe by the time you do get out there, they will have done something about it.
Sure, Director.
Seems common sense
Yes,
to
they
me.
are referred to the website, which has all of these suggestions and hints as to what to look for and what the corrections may be, but unfortunately, we find that many of these people just disregard them. By the time we get out there, we still have to kill rats.
But you can't rely, if the councilman's talking about elderly, I mean, there are a lot of elderly that are not computer literate, so the website's not worth anything. So,
Council President, if I may, a few years ago when I was on the council, I believe you were on the council then, when they had this issue, and a lot of it was with the dumpsters with the restaurants, if I'm not mistaken. And they went out there and they spoke to the restaurant owners and made sure that all the trash was covered. And I knew a few people that lived in the neighborhood, and it seemed to get better. So I don't know if you've spoken with the restaurant owners, making sure that, because before the trash was overflowing, and that's where most of the problem, but it was resolved before, so I don't see.
Councilwoman, if I may address that, and welcome back
Thank you very
to your
much.
first
Thank you.
meeting. Initially, we had two allegations of the origins of these rats, one being the restaurants on Rolfe Street. Our inspectors have been out there and they've been diligent. As a matter of fact, I have also walked behind those restaurants, and I did not see anything out of the ordinary in those particular cases. So that was the number one spot that we thought that could have been an origin.
What time it was.
And then there was another situation with a woman constituent who had chickens in her garage, and she had bird feed or chicken feed just piled up on the side of the garage, and through our inspector.
You don't have to tell me areas. I'm
Yeah.
just saying there are ways that could help us.
We are
Like the
working
restaurant
on
owners,
it.
I believe we find them right on the spot.
We are working on it.
Council Vice President.
Thank you, Council President. Staying on on this rat issue that's plaguing the city right now. First of all, I do want to thank Carlos, Mr. Lopez. He has been addressing the concerns. I've been getting quite a few calls, emails regarding rats in the neighborhoods, different areas, not just one, and it's not necessarily always by Rolfe Street but there seem to be at different areas. And I do see the report here, Mr. Lopez, but one of the things that I think needs to be also brought out is the fact that, we've gone out, we've looked at some areas, but to what extent is the city going out to actually finding a solution to this in respect to the amount of complaints that are out there? And what I mean by that is you have, you just mentioned inspectors, controls. I mean, are we limited to being able to really address this problem? Because I was in Ward 3 the other night, and they were also complaining about, that it's pretty common, seeing rats in the area, and now it's even common during the day. I mean, is your office getting these type of complaints and also these, because it doesn't seem like it's just Ward 2 or certain areas, but it seems like there's a lot more going on with these rats, and is the city able to handle it? I mean, if the city's doing, from what I've seen and worked with you, the city's doing everything it can to try to figure out the problem and find the solution, but I mean, is the city capable of handling what's going on citywide?
I think with the resources that we have and the ordinances that allow us to educate and try to control people's behavior through fines for, let's say, code violations, we do have the weapons that we need. But I guess what my question would be is the goal. What would our goal be? If we're talking about the eradication of rats, that's not going to happen. Rats are pretty hardy creatures, and they'll be here long after we're gone. However, if we're talking about manageability and control to, curtail the population, I think that given time, we will get this situation under control with the limited resources that we have. I think the other part of it is individual homeowners have to step up to the plate and contribute their part to help themselves as well. I mean, we can't, as a government, do everything for them, but we can provide them with the tools that we can provide them with.
On the next point that Councilman Santa Maria made regarding the crosswalks, I appreciate the fact that you're going to do the crosswalks in and around St. Mary's Feast. However, it seems they all need attention throughout the city. So is there a program or is there a list to redefine and restripe the crosswalks throughout the city?
I can't address all the crosswalks in the city, Council President, but I can tell you that the crosswalks that do get attention are the ones that are on the safe routes to school because of the obvious involvement of children. And we do take these crosswalks into account when they're reported to us, and we do send our traffic engineer and people to look at it. And if it's something that has a quick fix, we can do it. But if it's something that requires more intense labor or money, we take it on a case-by-case basis.
So you're saying that there's not a plan to redo the sidewalks, to redo the crosswalks, I should say, restripe them?
When you say a plan, are you talking about, what kind of plan are you talking about?
It's the time of year when we typically do that. So is there no plan to do that? Because you talked about safe routes to school, but if I can remind you that safe routes to school only covered 2 schools.
If I may address that, Councilman. I think this was even discussed during the finance, or I'm sorry, the budget discussions several years ago. The general crosswalk painting stopped, and the only thing that we have been painting in the last several years are those on the routes to schools. And there's a couple of reasons for it. One is that the old-fashioned type paint and paint machinery that we have doesn't last very long. It wears out very quickly. And the only way you can paint and hope to have any kind of durability with it is some of the newer high technology paints, and that paint machine is a very, very expensive proposition. So we have focused our resources on the routes to schools as far as crosswalk painting. And that's been going on for a while.
So we're still painting the now, you said safe routes to school, you said routes to school.
Well,
so
yes.
Safe routes to school was 2 schools.
No,
routes to school is
we're
many
talking about
schools.
routes to schools. That's what we concentrate
So
on.
we're using antiquated equipment that's going to wear out. So we're expending time
It's
and
the paint
energy and
that
paint.
will wear out. It's not the equipment. It's the
So-
paint that will wear out.
Right. So can't we put it out to bid?
Well, we can certainly look at it, but again, the costs involved could be prohibitive if it's anything indicative of what the paint and the machinery costs. That's where the cost is.
I'm going to sound like I'm running for office, and I'm not. But what's the safety of a child worth, as opposed to, what it might cost to prevent that? It's got to be addressed at some point.
Thank you, Councilman.
Anyone else on the communications? Councilman Arquette?
I'll yield to Councilman Stichels, had his hand up. You all set, Council? I just have an announcement, Council President. Being a history professor, it is the anniversary of an event that occurred 136 years ago. 136 years ago today, the U.S. Army suffered a humiliating defeat by Native American tribes, the Sioux, Cheyenne, Arapaho, Blackfeet Warriors, in what is known as the Battle of Little Bighorn. Lieutenant Colonel George Custer and 265 members of his command were killed on a desolate hill known as Custer Hill in the state of Montana. Give me an indulgence.
Slow down.
All right.
The clerk, he's trying to.
Lieutenant Colonel Custer and 265 members of his command were killed on a desolate hill known as Custer Hill in the state of Montana. The reason why I mention this to the members of the council, there is a Rhode Island, Massachusetts connection to this council president. A friend of mine, former New England Patriots kicker Adam Vinatieri, Super Bowl participant, Super Bowl winner, his great-grandfather was stationed at Fort Abraham Lincoln in North Dakota in the 7th Cavalry under Custer's command. Trooper Vinatieri was a member of the regimental band The regimental band was ordered to stay behind in Fort Abraham Lincoln, never engaged the Native Americans at the Battle of Little Bighorn. Therefore, Rhode Islanders and people from Massachusetts were able to enjoy numerous football games and field goal, game-winning field goals by kicker Adam Benatar.
Unless you were of course, unless you were a Giants fan, then you didn't enjoy him that as much.
He doesn't kick for the Patriots anymore, though, does he? He's no longer with the Patriots, so.
It is rather fitting that since he's left, they haven't won a championship since, right?
Old business.
I had to get that in.
Old business, Solicitor Kirschenbaum. The approval of the new sewer
Yes,
reapproval.
DEM is requiring a statement again from me, from the council, that the City Council of Cranston intends to implement the sewer use ordinance for which I asked you to approve, and you have approved. And what they want is a letter affirming your current intention to abide by this ordinance that you already passed. For reasons that they want to conduct public hearings on this ordinance, they want an affirmation that you still wish to continue with that process. The sewer use ordinance, as I explained before, has been approved, and the difference in this sewer use ordinance is that it specifically limits the discharges into our sewer system, which will provide us with greater control over the various constituents in our system, such as industrial users, Rhode Island Resource Recovery, and will make people either pre-treat or leave our system, which is what gives us greater control and which DEM requires.
If there are no objections, I'll direct the clerk to send a letter and a copy of that the sewer discharge level document, and explaining that that it was passed, that it's still on, that it's been codified, that there is no current legislation that would negate that or change that or repeal that. Is there any objection? There being none, clerk, will you send that letter to Mr. Kirschenbaum will provide you with the proper channel. Introduction of new business.
Proposed ordinance 6-12-1, transferring appropriations and amending the budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2011 and ending June 30th, 2012 for fourth quarter transfers, to be referred to the Finance Committee for hearing on July 12th. Proposed ordinance 6-12-2, authorizing the city to lease with to Chapel View Associates with respect to property, specifically a portion of Assessor's Plat 14, Lot 12. It's a portion of the fire station parking lot, to be referred to the Finance Committee for hearing on July 12th. The following new claims to be referred to the Claims Committee for hearing on July 22nd. A property damage claim from John DeFusco for an alleged incident on May 31st, 2012. A personal injury claim from Tammy Maloney for an alleged incident on February 7th, 2012. A personal injury claim of Tammy Gerlach from an alleged incident on January 24th, 2012. A property damage claim from Melanie Patterson for an alleged incident on March 12th, 2012. A personal injury claim from Elizabeth Jones from an alleged incident on November 19th, 2011. And a personal injury claim from Jean Parent from an alleged incident on May 24th, 2012. The following ordinances are to be referred to a special ordinance committee hearing, ordinance committee meeting for hearing on August 2nd, 2012 at 7 p.m. They are proposed ordinance number 6-12-3. That's an amendment of Chapter 17.84, the zoning code regarding the site plan review process. We have proposed ordinance 6-12-4, again amending the zoning code, the schedule of uses. Proposed ordinance 6-12-5, again amending the zoning code, the definition section. Proposed ordinance 6-12-6, again amending the zoning code pertaining to limited dwelling structures on lots. We also have proposed ordinance 6-12-7, which is approving the 2010 comprehensive plan for the city of Cranston. And those are all matters received by the deadline to be referred as stated.
Refer those?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion to refer, right?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels.
Is there a separate motion for the resolutions that are, because they weren't,
You haven't done the resolutions yet. This is just the business of the ordinances, is that correct?
Yes.
Motion to refer the ordinances, and there is a second. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Ms. Wall?
We have the following resolutions to be referred to the committee. Resolution proposing an amendment of Section 10.02 of the Home Rule Charter, directing the Secretary of State to place on the ballot the following as a referendum question regarding Director of Public Works. That's to be referred to the Ordinance Committee for hearing on July 12th. We have proposed a resolution proposing an amendment to Section 14.01 of the Home Rule Charter, directing the Secretary of State to place on the ballot the following as a referendum question relating to the Director of Personnel. That's also to be referred to the Ordinance Committee for hearing on July 12th. We have a resolution authorizing the city to agree to a loan of a city vehicle to the city of Warwick with respect to property, specifically a senior center trans van. That's to be referred to the Ordinance Committee for hearing on July 12th. We have a resolution authorizing Rhode Island Genco LLC Broad Rock Renewables to connect to the Cranston sewer system. This is to be referred to the Public Works Committee for hearing on July 9th. The notice on that says the ordinance says Public Works Committee on July 12th. That's a typo.
Okay, is there a motion on those?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 We have one further item which needs to be the council needs to vote to suspend Rule 34B to accept this as late business to go in. It's proposed ordinance 6-12-8 authorizing the city to enter into an agreement with the Rhode Island Department of Education for the transfer of ownership of the Cranston Area Career and Technical Center to the city for $3.2 million.
I'll entertain a motion to suspend the rule.
Motion to suspend.
Motion, any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Councilman Donahue?
Yes.
Councilman Stichels?
Yes.
Councilman Acknowledgements? Yes. Councilman Luci? Councilman Maria?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilman Navarro?
Yes.
Yes.
Now-
And on the motion to refer the business?
That would be referred to the Ordinance Committee for hearing on July 12th.
Motion?
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? There be none. Clerk, take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. I had one other thing in my packet here, which is the miscellaneous business, I'm sorry. Resolution 2012-13, supporting the creation and expansion of outdoor space, recreation, and city parks. Mayor's progress report. Is there a follow-up progress report from administration? I'm sorry, Councilman Stichels.
Yeah, I think, and first, I think this item is improperly on the agenda, and I apologize for not catching it when the draft agenda came out, but the resolution called for the report to be given to the Public Works Committee and not to the full council. I think the resolution is in the packet if you want to check that, but so I think we should just refer this to the Public Works Committee.
Okay. And is there any other miscellaneous business? The council's next regular meeting will be held on Monday, July 23rd, 2012 at 7 p.m. I'll entertain a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.